Hello, my lovely listeners. I'm Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns. Welcome to this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. Good morning, lovely friends. I hope you're all happy, healthy and well on this beautiful morning. And I have joining me today, my beautiful colleague, Dr. Mary Barson. Welcome, Mary.
Hello, Dr. Lucy.
How are you today?
Good. I'm good. Very pregnant, but good. Yes. And since this pregnancy is a state that I have willingly gone into, I'm going to say that's a good thing. But I'm feeling big. I'm feeling like I don't move very well. Getting in and out of the car is actually become sort of a hysterical farce to anyone who's watching me. But I'm okay.
Good. I often used to joke that when I was heavily pregnant, that getting out of the car, it was like some event from the Cirque du Soleil. It seemed to need.
It's totally what it feels like. And I feel this great sense of accomplishment every time I successfully navigate it.
Well, so you should. We love celebrating small achievements. So huzzah to you for getting out of the car.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, lovely listeners, Easter is on its way. And we thought we'd talk this week about navigating Easter and some of tips that we've got for you to help you navigate Easter in a way that feels good for you. I guess the first thing that I would love to talk about is, and it's interesting, it's come up from some of our members, they're fearful of, what's going to happen over Easter. There's this sort of, impending sense of panic that they're worried. And, Maz, I'd like to explore that a little bit more. What do you think's going on there?
I reckon that for a lot of our beautiful people, it's this idea that they're going to be pressured into eating hot cross buns and chocolate and things that won't necessarily serve their goals. This idea that they will lose control, or a fear that they will lose control and lose all their gains. And if they can't do it perfectly, then they're just not going to be able to do it at all. And also the fear of the social pressure, I think, is quite significant as well.
Absolutely. And I think for some people, it's also the fear that they won't be able to resist. On one sense, they want to resist, they don't want to eat it. And on the other hand, they've got this fear that they won't be able to, and therefore they will, air quotes, fail.
Yes. And it can be a really tricky time to navigate, absolutely, because you really can become under a lot of pressure to eat the hot cross buns and to just eat the chocolate and to just engage in the festivities. And that creates fear and anxiety for people. But it doesn't have to. It really doesn't have to. I reckon with some simple tips and tricks and some really simple doable mind management, everybody can find a way to navigate Easter that works for them.
Absolutely. So the first thing I would like to point out is that Easter, the amount of hot cross buns and chocolate eggs that we are bombarded with is monstrous. And the reason it is because these companies make money out of it. The more you buy, the more money they make. So they promote their products in a way that feeds into our scarcity model. And the scarcity model is, if I don't eat it now, I'll never have an opportunity to eat it again. It's kind of, and it makes sense because that's, again, as we, know that we came from our ancestral times, scarcity was real. At the time, fruit was only available for a certain amount of time. So people, and you see it still, bears gorging on honey because it's only available for a short amount of time. So there is some really deep seated thought processes that cause this scarcity. But the scarcity is actually fake.
It is. It's a lot of it is marketing mischief. I mean, Easter eggs are just, Cadbury's Easter eggs are just Cadbury's chocolate put into a different shape. There's nothing particularly magical or scarce about them. Even hot cross buns, it's raisin bread, really. Maybe a few more extra little spices on it. I mean, I don't know about other countries, but they're certainly not scarce. In Australia, hot cross buns They start to be sold on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. They are everywhere. So
Yes.
there isn't any real scarcity. The scarcity is not real.
No, and this is, again, companies trying to capitalise on the fact that we go, oh, hot cross buns are only available for a short time. They're actually available for months. And then, even after they disappear, as Mary said, it's just raisin toast in a different shape. And you can buy that all year round. There is no scarcity around hot cross buns. Chocolate in the shape of a bunny or a shape of an egg is just chocolate, which is available all year round. Chocolate with caramel eggs, chocolate caramel filled eggs, that's available all year round as well.
Yeah. And it is natural and normal to feel the fear of missing out. So this comes under our tips and tricks and reframing. So beware the marketing mischief and don't get sucked into this scarcity model. But also, there could be a bit of scarcity, true scarcity, depending on your family traditions. There might be an Easter feast at which certain foods are only available at Easter, and you may choose to eat them or you may choose to not eat them. And if you choose to not eat them, it's natural and normal to feel FOMO, the fear of missing out. And it is a fear. It's a literal fear. People do not like FOMO. It's uncomfortable. However, you can reframe FOMO. If you choose not to eat the Easter foods that are high carb or high inflammatory and not in line with your health goals, if you choose to not eat them and you're feeling the FOMO, you can practice flipping it around. Turn that fear of missing out into joy of missing out. Celebrate all the things that you are gaining by not eating the high carb, high inflammatory food. FOMO to JOMO. It's possible.
It's totally possible. And in fact, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So I have zero concerns about Easter these days. It is nothing. It's like, again, I can buy dark chocolate, and I do. I have my, very dark 90 or 95% chocolate, which I can regulate because it doesn't do whatever the sugary chocolate does. And I can have that whenever I want. I'm the boss of me. I can have it whenever I want. And if I have it on Easter Sunday, then that's great. I have no desire to engage in little chocolate eggs anymore. And part of the reason for that is that I know that having just one is something I find very difficult. So in my head, the JOMO comes from the idea that one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. So it's much easier for me to say no than to moderate. Now, that's not the same for everybody. Everyone, again, we are always talking about you have to know yourself well, know exactly what tricks your brain will, stories your brain will give you, and work out whether they're true.
Yeah, and you got to know yourself. So for me, engaging in the sugary chocolate Easter eggs is not helpful. If I eat one, I would probably, wake up my sugar cravings, getting that dopamine rush. I'd probably be inclined to want to eat more. And so I just don't eat the sugary chocolate. But I do often eat a hot cross bun or two on Easter. And so this is part, we're going to get to this in a minute, having a plan. And part of my plan is that I often do choose to. And it comes down to family traditions. So in particular, my dad really loves making sourdough bread, and I don't eat his sourdough bread most of the time. Bread doesn't serve me well, but he can put so much love and attention into making these homemade sourdough hot cross buns that, with the cultures that he cultivates, like it's this whole process. He may not choose to do it this year, but he often does. And he's so proud of these hot cross buns that he makes and he presents to us on Easter morning. And I often eat one with some butter. And I do that with my eyes open, and I really can stop at one. Bread doesn't do to me, or hot cross buns don't do to me what sugary Easter eggs would do to my brain. And I will walk into that situation with my eyes open. I appreciate that I'm probably going to wake up my carb cravings a little bit, which might be uncomfortable. But for, just a whole lot of reasons, I often choose to do that. And that's okay. So that kind of brings us to our next tip is have a plan, and you are the boss of you. You can do whatever you want. You can choose to have a total bender and just eat all the things, whatever you want, throughout the entire Easter festive period. And you can do that. You are the boss of you. That is a choice that is available to you. It might not be the best choice. It might not be a choice that aligns with your health goals. But honestly, if you did that for a few days, the world would not end. The sky would not come crashing down. So you could do that.
You are not a bad person. You haven't murdered anybody.
That's right. That's right. All things into perspective. Eating 6 hot cross buns is not the same as murder. Or you might want a middle ground like I do, and I just know that I can do that. I can do that with hot cross buns, but I can't do that with chocolate. You might say, look, on Easter Day, I'm just going to eat whatever. I'm just going to do whatever is there. I'm not going to moderate it. I'm just going to eat the foods that are there. Or you might say, look, I'm going to stay completely on plan. I am going to only eat foods that serve me, foods that are healthful, like the green list foods, and I'm going to have a plan about how I navigate that. And that's great too. So basically, I would summarize, I'll go into more detail, but you need to have a plan. And you can plan to go off plan. That's okay. You can. But then you need a plan about how you're going to get back on plan. So if you plan to go off plan, have a plan to get back on plan.
So if you've taken your all-terrain vehicle off the road, you need to know how to get back on the road.
Yep. Need to figure it out. So the next day, after you've eaten all the things, all the chocolate hot cross buns and celebrate your Easter foods that you could possibly imagine, or you've just had a little bit, the next day you might feel a little unwell. The next day, your sugar cravings and or carbohydrate cravings are likely to be activated. And we like to call this, you have awoken Fluffy. Fluffy being the 3-headed Cerberus carb craving monster that lives inside your brain. And if you keep your carbohydrate intake low, Fluffy is happily, peacefully asleep and you're living your best low-carb life full of food freedom and not feeling governed by food cravings in any negative way. But then if you eat the sugary, high-carb foods, hyperpalatable foods, then Fluffy can wake up. So you've got a raging carb craving monster inside your brain. What are you going to do? You need to put Fluffy back to sleep. Lucy, what's a great way for people to put Fluffy back to sleep?
So it's tempting to fast. That's what people often do. They will think, oh, I've overeaten. I'm going to counter that by fasting. But actually we find that often doesn't work, because what happens is your cravings are really high, and high cravings and high hunger mean that your willpower, whatever that is very low. So the idea being that what we want to do is, while Fluffy goes back to sleep, we want to make sure that we have nourished our body with plenty of protein and plenty of fat. So combining that fat protein, and so definitely don't fast. Again, if you're a 3-meal-a-day person, then have your 3 meals. If you're a 2-meal-a-day person, have 2 meals. But I wouldn't make that next day your low-eating day. And again, depending on your Fluffy, everyone's Fluffy's different. Some people's will go back to sleep quite quickly, maybe a couple of days. And then if you wanted to have a fasting period, that's fine. You could do that then. And the fasting can be used kind of like a punishment, as we talked about a couple of episodes again, withdrawing of food as a punishment. And so you're really, setting yourself up to potentially fail, whatever that means. But the idea is that you then can't, your one day turns into a 6-week extravaganza because you haven't put him back to sleep.
That's right. And you, to our beautiful members, I remember you gave out some wonderful advice on what to do on Boxing Day with regards to, all the leftovers and sugary high carb food that you might have around. So what would you say to people after Easter?
Yeah, so this is, I reckon, is one of the hardest things to manage your mind around. And again, it comes back to food wastage and stories in our head, to throw food or food-like products out that don't serve you. People find it so hard to throw out a $3 chocolate bunny because in their mind someone's paid for it and given it to them, or they've paid for it and given it to them. So rather than throw it out, they'll often eat it to get rid of it. So, which is, when you say it out loud, it's nuts, isn't it? I mean, really, it's $3, particularly for people that then go and pay other people to lose weight. So you're swapping your $3 chocolate egg for, some $200 consultation with a weight loss specialist. It's crazy.
False economy.
Absolutely. Or we go and give it to somebody else. And again, you can do that if you want to, but, in my mind, I just chuck it in the bin where it can go. It's okay.
That's right. It's okay. It's more than one way to waste food. Just talking about reasonable stories in your head, many years ago, not now, but many years ago, I would eat my daughter's chocolate. This is like when she was little enough to not notice. That certainly wouldn't get away with it nowadays. She's far too onto it. And how much chocolate she gets at Easter from other people is another topic that I won't go into. But I would eat it because, I'd have a fit and then it would wake up my sugar cravings. And I certainly was a card-carrying member of the, Sugar Addict Society many years ago. And the story in my head, which was totally reasonable, was, well, if I need to eat this chocolate to save my toddler from eating it because it's not good for her, whereas, putting it in the bin would have been a far more logical solution.
This is the reasonable stories, isn't it? If I eat it, then I'm saving them from eating it.
Yep. This is a selfless maternal act. No. No.
I know. When really it was just a sneaky story to allow you to scoff it all rather than chuck it out.
Get the dopamine hit. Exactly.
Yeah. One of the techniques that I know you talk a lot about, which I think is beautiful, is the idea of mental rehearsal of your plan. Can you just tell us a bit more about that?
I love mental rehearsal. So this is a beautiful, simple, evidence-based technique that can very easily strengthen our resolve to follow a plan, no matter what our plan is. And so have a plan. That's it. Go into your Easter with a plan. You could have a little bit of the sugary food, none of the sugary food. If I'm not going to have any of the sugary food, I'm going to bring my own. I'm going to talk to the host beforehand, make sure there's food for me there, or I'm just going to go there and not eat. Like whatever your plan is, have one. And be clear on what it is. And then practice it. Mental rehearsal is a tool that the sporting world has known about for a long time, that athletes use to enhance their performance. It's really powerful and we can do it too. So what mental rehearsal looks like is your plan, perhaps even write it down or just have it very clear in your mind. And then the night before, maybe 2 nights before, you sit down. Good time to do it is just before bed when you're kind of nice and calm. Maybe sit on the corner of your bed, the edge of your bed. Take 3 slow, deep breaths and then step by step mentally rehearse what your plan is. So say your plan is to go to a family picnic and you're going to bring with you a low-carb real food platter. And when you get there, you're only going to eat low-carb real food, maybe only off your platter if that's what's available, or pick around what else is available. You know what you're going to drink, and also you know what you're going to say. When someone says, here, have this Cadbury white chocolate bunny, you're going to say something like, oh, no, thanks. It doesn't agree with me. Or you might take the bunny and know that you're going to chuck it out later. You have a plan. When somebody offers you a beer and maybe you don't want to drink beer, you just say, oh, no, thanks. Beer doesn't agree with me, or no, thanks. I'm not drinking today. Or you have a plan. And then know what your plan is. And the night before, you're sitting in the edge of your bed and you step by step mentally rehearse the plan. It'll only take a few minutes because you can do it, on fast forward replay in your brain. You see yourself making the platter. You see yourself covering it in Glad wrap and taking it with you to your event. You see yourself getting to the event, putting your platter down. You see yourself having those little conversations and warding off the people who might want to pressure you to eat the high carb food or the inflammatory food. You see yourself eating the low carb real food. You see yourself enjoying the day, chatting to your friends, chatting to your family. You see yourself coming home, having achieved your goal, having followed through with your plan and feeling wonderful. And you allow that wonderful sense of achievement and pride at having stuck to your plan flow through you. And you might do that another 3 times and then you can go to bed. And that is mental rehearsal. And no matter what your plan is, you can use this tool so that you've already won before you started. You're much less likely to be flummoxed when you get to the event, when you're surrounded by the environment that has the high carb food, the chocolate, the hot cross buns, the alcohol, and you win before you even start.
It's so powerful, that technique. And there's a little addition that I would make for some people. There are some people out there in our community who are not good at visualizing. So some people's brains don't give them mental pictures. Mine is very visual. So if you're one of those people, you can still do mental rehearsal. You just write down your plan. So you write down, again, it's just step by step, what are you going to do? And as you do, it doesn't have to be in your bestest writing, just be on somewhere, but at least you've written it. You've put those thoughts into your brain about what your plan is.
And it's so empowering. So you can go from a sense of sort of fear, impending doom or panic to one of empowerment. And the final thing, Lucy, that I reckon we should discuss is beware the perfectionism.
Yes. So this is what happens when you've decided, maybe you've made a plan that you're just going to eat low carb. You're not going to indulge in any of those foods. But then something happens. There was a moment that you weren't prepared and you ate, an egg or something. And then the story in our head for so many of us goes like this. Oh, bugger. I've stuffed it up. I've ruined it. Oh, well, what am I doing? I'll start tomorrow. And as soon as we say I'll start tomorrow, that's like a gate opens in our brain to eat everything in sight because we're starting tomorrow and it's going to be perfect tomorrow because today wasn't perfect. So, it's like it's this weird little story that goes, oh, I'm off the hook. I don't have to be perfect today, so I'm going to eat everything because tomorrow I'm going to be perfect.
Yes. Beware that all or nothing thinking. It's a really common trap that our brains get caught in, and it's not true.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Lovely listeners, I think that is probably all we need to talk about today. There is probably one other tool, just one last tool that we haven't talked about that is really helpful to many of our followers and many of our members, and that is hypnotherapy. And we are going to be talking about that further into the future, but we do have a program that if anybody was interested in, it's a 31-day hypnosis by Mary and myself, really looking at the subconscious brain and the stories that are in there that you may not even be aware. In fact, you're not aware of them because they're subconscious, they're not in your conscious brain. But hypnotherapy is a beautiful tool that talks to your subconscious brain, and there's certainly plenty in there that would help you navigate difficult situations like Christmas, like Easter, like weddings, like birthdays, that sort of thing. So again, we'll link that in the show notes, and we will see you all again next week.
Bye-bye, beautiful people.
So, my lovely listeners, that ends this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And I'm Dr. Mary Barson. We're from Real Life Medicine. To contact us, please visit rlmedicine.com.
And until next time, thanks for listening. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.